Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Comedian's Tea Party with Deaves. And this week my guest is Jamie Lenman, the one and only, about which... Now, if you don't know who Jamie Lenman is, then first of all, shame on you. Second of all, go and check out everything that he's done. You may have heard of a band called Reuben, and he was the singer and songwriter and guitarist in Reuben, and they remain one of my favourite bands of all time. So yeah, they're very good, and as such, I was very, very excited to have him on. Additionally, his solo stuff is also absolutely incredible. I really love it. So when he's playing live again, go and see him. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you listen to his entire back catalogue because it is all great. Obviously, with Reuben being one of my favourite bands and Jamie Lenman being just an absolute gentleman, I was very excited about this episode. And as such, I was so excited that I forgot to hit record on the computer for quite a while. So there's a bit of a change in the sound about half an hour in because thankfully, thanks very much to Stuart Goldsmith for telling me to have a backup recorder. Thankfully, I had a backup recorder going, so I picked my end up fine. I got his, like I explain it in the podcast, but yeah, it's panned out. It's all worked out, so it's all good. I mean, other difficulties that we were facing is the fact that Virgin Internet, who Jamie was with, cut out completely at roughly the time that we were recording. So the fact that we managed to record the podcast at all is impressive. So I'm glad that worked out. We cover loads of subjects. Obviously, we talk about, music and comedy and how they intertwine, which also sort of covers like Bobcat Goldthwait and how he used to support Nirvana on tour and John Cooper Clarke, and I couldn't remember who it was that he was with. I was suggesting it was The Damned. It wasn't. I was thinking of The Fall, even though he actually shared the stage with many massive acts, but that was the main one I was thinking of. We also talk about musicals, and Jamie actually reveals an exclusive announcement in relation to musicals during the podcast, so listen out for that. Also, on that subject, who wouldn't want to see Love and Death in East Cheam? Listen on to find out what that's about, because I think that'd be very interesting indeed. We also talk about how strict he is on how he likes his tea, which makes for a very amusing conversation. And additionally, that he doesn't like other teas, or does he? Listen on, find out. And also, whilst talking about tea, he reveals how intrinsic biscuit dunking is to our history and culture. Also very interesting. We also cover his writing process to some extent. So if you've ever been interested in either how he writes or how a musician writes, then it's quite a good insight, I think. I mean, there's a lot of really good insight in this entire podcast. So yeah, it's a really good one. I'm really, really glad I did it. And very excited for you all to hear it. Just to cover up a couple of other things that we couldn't quite pinpoint during the conversation. Simon Munnery, he was thinking of The League Against Tedium, which is the character that he played in Attention Scum, which is a show that Stuart Lee directed. And also, just to clarify, because you may hear a couple of names of people that might not make sense if you don't otherwise know. So we mentioned Dave Gardner, who was in Angelica, and he was also in Angelica with Mike Webster, who I also mentioned, and Mike Webster is now in Asylums with Luke Branch, who I also mentioned. And Luke Branch at the time was in Smother. All of those bands require your attention because, all incredible. So go and check all of those out. And whilst you're looking into things like Mike Webster's done, also Baddies. He's got around. He's been in some very successful bands over the years. So check all of those out. It's all good. It's all just great. It's one of my favourite podcasts that I've released. So I'm excited for you to hear it. And with that in mind, enjoy. Hello. There you are. Much more successful.
Congratulations.
On calling you.
Wait, on everything, on the shirt, on building the cupboards behind you, I'm assuming.
Oh, thank you. Actually, my fiancée did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations on finding a handy fiancée then.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, I mean, that was the whole thing. When we moved in together, basically, like, the deal was I'd be really handy and build loads of stuff. And, like, I had to work on a couple of days, and by the time I sort of got to the house, she said, I've built everything. Brilliant.
Nice.
So I'm redundant. I've just got to be funny. And she's better at that than me as well, so...
That's good. I took a whole week before we moved in here to make sure everything was okay before the missus turned up, and it worked. It paid dividends. It's worth doing.
Smart. Nice. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing good, thanks. I've mowed the lawn. That's the kind of thing that's happening around here. That's a big event in Casa de Lenman at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting.
I've got to use two different instruments. Got to use the mower and then the strimmer. So it's a multi-level task, if you understand me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I used to be a gardener.
Did you?
Well familiar. Yeah, not a very good one though. So
Oh.
literally cutting the grass was pretty much the extent of it.
Okay, well, I didn't realise I was talking shop. Apologies.
It's all right. It's been a little while. So, am I loud enough?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thanks. Are you? Am I loud enough to you? I'm not sure what I can do about it if I'm not.
Plenty loud enough.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
A very good feed indeed. That was not meant to rhyme, but here we are.
No, you did well.
Well, thank you. Cool. Right, I mean, technically, we have already started, but for the sake of it, we'll just jump straight. I have got an intro.
You got to do a little intro. I understand. Yep.
Yeah. So, hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Comedian's Tea Party with Deaves, with me, Deaves, and this week my very special guest of Jamie Lenman.
Hello.
Hello.
You missed some great cutting the grass bants before the official start. Sorry, listeners.
Oh, it's staying in.
Is it staying in? You're gonna okay, good stuff.
Yeah, it all stays in.
Now people have realised it wasn't quite as good as I made it sound. Embarrassing for me.
I'll edit some bits in. I'll put some explosions and fireworks.
Okay, thank God. Yeah. All
right. Now you complimented me on my shirt and the cupboards that my fiance built, but my word, look at that. Is that a dressing gown?
It is a dressing gown. Yes. Yes.
Is it silk?
It is some. Yes. I've been led to believe it's silk. It's something very nice. It was a gift from a well-travelled friend of mine who had it made for him in Japan, I think.
Wow.
And he said, this will look much better on you than it would on me, which is not true because he's a handsome devil. But maybe I needed zhuzhing up, whereas he doesn't need any adornment. You see what I'm saying?
I'm with you.
I managed to turn most compliments into insults is where we're going with this.
Yeah, it's a very British way of doing things, isn't
it?
True,
yeah, true.
Yeah, like you complimented me on the cupboards and I said, it wasn't me. That was,
That's true. That's
immediately batting you down.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you very much. No, not my handiwork. I did buy the shirt myself though, so
okay, good, nice one.
I'll take that. I bought it while I was in Edinburgh from a Primark for about £3.
I mean, that is unnecessary information. How did you pay for it? What did you do to earn the money? Because that adds a dimension, doesn't it? If you were clubbing seals to earn the money, I dislike the shirt.
Yeah, no. I what would I have been doing at the time? I think I was working in a theatre backstage.
Good, that's good.
Yeah.
Culture shirt, well done.
Yeah. I mean, culture shirt, culture dressing gown. I'm genuinely jealous of that dressing gown. It's
Well, I'll send it to you. I won't. But if it gives me another one, if it gives me another better one, you can have this one. How's that?
Yeah, sweet. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What have you got on your shelf there?
Well, behind me here, you can see just a small selection. My study is actually packed. Most of it is action figures. But behind me here, I expect you can see a range of Doctor Who books because I have a very large Doctor Who collection. And then here are some action figures. There's only a small smattering of action figures on this side. The other side is the action figure side. But you've got my Aladdin Cave of Wonders playset right at the back.
Amazing.
In front of them is a small selection of Beetlejuice figures because not all of the Beetlejuice figures are really very good from that line, so I've just got the best ones. Couple of select WWF Hasbros.
Nice.
And Orko and Skeletor there. I don't really care about the He-Man line, but I do like Battle Damage Skeletor, and everyone loves Orko. So that's what I've got. Just a few bits. The over that side, in fact, you can see, and perhaps your listeners might be interested to see, I did a tour of my house for Ticketmaster last week, I think it was. And the reactions to my Aladdin's Cave of action figures, some of them were quite offensive, but all of them were extreme. So I'd recommend that both you and your listeners maybe check that out to see all the toy, because I'm a big action figure collector, big sci-fi movie collector.
Oh, cool, man. I'll look into it. Yeah, nice. Right, I've thrown myself off. I don't know what I was going to say.
Sorry.
It's a very professional podcast.
Yeah.
This would generally just be... I mean, we'd probably be having the exact same chat, but we'd be closer.
We would.
That's the difference.
Although it'll probably be permeated between you saying things like, "Oh my God, you got the Ghostbusters firehouse. Oh my God, you got all the mask." Because I have.
Yeah, I'd just get that out of the way before.
Sure, because you're a professional. Yeah. Forgive me.
Yeah. That's why I'm earning absolutely no money from this whatsoever. Yeah. It's actually costing me quite a lot of money.
Is it? Oh, bloody hell.
No, not a lot. Some. It's fine because I'm getting street cred, and that is priceless.
Yeah, it earns you a lot. You can pay for a hot dog with street cred. It's similar to experience, which they try and pay you with if you do design or animation for people. You'll get experience.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, like any creative, because you get paid a lot for experience.
And exposure as well. The banks love experience, and many is the time I walk into Barclays, whop down a huge sack of experience and exposure, and say, "Credit my account." And they smack me in the face and send me tumbling out backwards in a backwards forward roll.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, when did you start playing in bands?
In bands, I was about 10. I think my first band, there was only two of us. We were 10. The first time, I had lots of bands before we could get a drummer, because getting a drummer was quite difficult.
Oh, okay.
Kids don't. It takes a special kid to petition their parents for a drum kit. I had lots of bands with drum machines. From 10 onwards, basically. I think the first drummer I ever had, I was 14 when I managed to recruit a real drummer, and he had a car and an undercut. He was excellent.
When you were 14, how old was he?
He was 18.
Oh, okay.
Which is quite a big gap if you remember being at school. I was in year 8 and he was in the sixth form. It was like a forbidden love. He'd have to sneak in, because the sixth form college was sort of attached to our school, but he'd have to sneak into the year 7 playground to talk about what songs we were going to do that night. It was great. It was great.
That's weird.
Mm.
Did he have to put on a fake school tie?
No, because, the sixth formers, if they ever came over to the lower bits of the school, they got immediate cred, didn't they? Especially Paul Brady, because he had long hair and he had a jacket with a skull on the back. And so people treated him like a sort of semi-teacher.
That's how I heard of Paul Brady. So
Paul Brady, yeah.
Yeah, legend. No, what's my point? Oh, right, yeah, no, so, I'm pretty sure that gigs for exposure have been around for a long time.
Well, do you know what? Gigs for exposure, I feel slightly differently about that for some reason, and I even have been known to defend pay-to-play. Isn't that weird? Because I get very cross when people ask me to do graphic work for exposure.
Yeah.
But I don't mind doing gigs, and I never minded doing gigs. I think the difference is that stagecraft is a skill that you do have to learn on a stage in front of an audience. You can hone your songwriting at home, you can hone your music playing the guitar in your bedroom, and you can hone your design and graphic skills by yourself, but you cannot learn how to put on a show without being in front of an audience. So I think necessarily you do have to do a lot of it for essentially free before you can start raking in the bucks. So that's the one area where I would say early on in your career, playing gigs for exposure and for experience is sort of probably a bit all right.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, to an extent, I think. Because don't get me wrong, so I used to play in a band. I remember the first time we went to do a pay-to-play gig, and it was the first time we'd ever heard of pay-to-play. And we'd just got a booker, and a booker, it was some girl with an email address. But
that girl.
Yeah, she booked us a gig at this pub that we'd heard of, and it was a reasonably sort of well-known pub in London. I can't remember what it was now, because it was about 15 years ago. And but we turned up to the pub, and we'd rented a van which had cost us sort of 70 quid or something, and taken all our instruments up because we were doing the kit share.
Oh yeah.
And they said, "Oh yeah, cool. So just pay us this amount." And we were like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Oh yeah, no, you got to pay to play." And we had no idea about that. And they said, "Oh yeah," and we said, "But we've already rented the van and that, so we actually haven't got any money." And they went, "Well, then you can't play."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, that's my drum kit in the back of that van, so we'll just go home."
That's a bit much for the kit share band.
Yeah. So yeah, I said, right, cool, we'll see you later then, but I'm going to take my drum kit with me. And they said, no, I'll tell you what, we'll waiver the fee, but next time. And you're like, yeah, okay.
Bloody hell. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, how I would defend pay to play, although you noodled out of it very well there, and well done. And I was going to say, I think the kit share band should get a bit of a leeway. But pay to play, the thing is that when you're starting out in a band, you're probably rubbish, and number one, you're so keen to get gigs that you probably would pay a bit. You just want a gig. And if you're talking 40, 50 quid, that's only a tenner each or whatever between a 4-piece band. So I'd have gladly paid that just to get on the stage. Plus, you've got to remember that whoever's putting the gig on, they're not going to sell any tickets, are they? Because who's going to come and see your rubbish band and 5 other rubbish bands?
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
They've got to rent the venue. They've got their own arrangement with the venue. They've got costs to cover. And so, the only way of putting that gig on, unless your little school band is putting 100 people, is to take a contribution. And if it could be explained in this manner to the bands, if it wasn't quite as mercenary as give us 50 quid and you can pay the gig, if pay to play promoters said, look, How we do it is I rent the venue, we get 5 acts, we all got clubbed together to rent it, and then however many mates you bring, you get a quid each or whatever. I think if it could just be explained in those terms, because promoters do have overheads, then it wouldn't be quite civilified. It does make sense, but only up to a point.
Yeah, but our only issue with it really was that we had no idea that it was a pay-to-play gig. We were just told to turn up to the gig, and we got there and they asked us for money.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
That's a racket, mate.
Yeah. But also, the promoter had done no promoting, so there was about 30 people there. And it was...
Well, that's the other edge of it. The promoters are often learning themselves, aren't they? Everyone learns together, and the only one who isn't learning is the pub. They've got a back room. If you want to use it, it's 200 quid. They've learnt that lesson from day one. So well done, pubs.
Yeah, they've really cornered the racket, bastards. Yeah, but I mean, obviously, like pay-to-play gigs do they currently exist for comedians as well, and
do they?
They're heavily frowned upon.
Are they?
Yeah.
Because I would have thought that comedians need more time to work more than a band need more time to workshop the material in front of audiences. No, Nespa?
Yes, you are right. But there's also like in London, there's I don't know. There's hundreds of open mic gigs that run for free, and there's a lot of them. There's a much argued type of gig called a bringer.
Yep.
Which is where you bring an audience member. Yes. And like I used to do quite a few of those because like before I sort of had learnt to do better, and they're very handy because they just become full of because those gigs would have sort of 20-30 acts on, which is too many. But
that's too many. Yeah.
You'd be playing to sort of 50-60 people.
Yeah.
Which was nice, and it's quite cool. So. And it was a really nice way to learn to deal with a warm audience when you'd go to other open mic gigs, which would be you and 6 other comedians just sort of hating each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were very useful, like to sort of to build confidence in that. And yeah, open mics were handy for that. But I never felt the need to do pay to play gigs, and now I get paid, all right money to go and play for people. So
well, that's the dream, mate. Would you say that if you're on a bill with, let's say, 4 of the comics, as opposed to being on a bill with 4 of the bands, how does the support between the lineup differ? I sort of get the idea, and this is not fair, but I've read I've read a couple of autobiographies of famous comics, lots actually, and I sort of imagined from them, extrapolated that there's a bit of bitchiness there, similar to in the acting profession, where there's a bit of sneering at each other's acts, and I don't feel that between bands, but maybe there is some sneering and I'm just not aware of it. What do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. I'd actually say that there is some between some bands as well, because especially sort of like around Southend when you're playing, like when you're starting out and you're playing the same sort of 4 or 5 pubs over and over and over, you'll end up gigging with the same people over and over. Yes. And some of them you'll see like never improving, and then there's always like, oh, it's that band again.
But let's not forget the Southend is a particularly acerbic region of the UK. I was quite shocked when I first visited. I don't know if that's bands or just Southend.
Just Southend, I think.
Yeah, maybe. And what about comics?
Yeah. It's actually, as a community of comedians in Southend, it's actually really nice. We're all largely really good friends. Good. I say largely because like there's 5 or 6 of us that are sort of regular gigging comedians, and a couple in the area that are sort of their TV comedians are a little bit above us, but we're still all friends. Yeah, so amongst us, like it's quite friendly. But then once you start getting into sort of London, it becomes quite vicious.
Does it? Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
hideous. Playing yeah. Who did I go and see? No, I've never actually seen a comedy gig at Jongleurs. Is it Jongleurs in Camden Lock?
Yeah. That was, what's it called as a venue?
Jongleurs is the night and the venue is something else. That's right. I've only ever seen rock gigs at that venue, but I've fooled myself into believing that I've seen comedy gigs there because I've read about so many there and I've been to the venue, but I've never actually seen... I don't go and see an awful lot of stand-up comedy, I must confess, because, well, the ticket prices tend to be quite high and I have to be quite choosy with my... evenings out, so I more often go and see a rock band than I go and see a comic, but I do like stand-up comedy.
Okay, like what sort of stuff are you into?
Well, now you've put me on the spot. Do you know who I really loved actually back in the day? In recent years, there's been a move towards, I say in recent years, about 10 years ago, there was an explosion of comedians would bring out, spearheaded by Michael McIntyre, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it seemed to me that all of a sudden everyone was bringing out DVDs. Jimmy Carr had like a DVD out every Christmas, Michael McIntyre, John Bishop, all of that. That became like a big industry. And I found their stuff incredibly broad, and that really turned me off stand-up comedy.
Oh, okay.
The stuff that I was enjoying before then, I really loved Julian Barrett and Noel Fielding before they collaborated on the Boosh. Obviously, I loved the Boosh, but I was into them as solo comics before they started. I liked the really weird stuff, and I really liked the League of Simon What's-His-Chops, who did the League of... Do you know where I'm going with this? Not the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's a comic book. It was something like the League of Gentlemen, but it wasn't. There's so many leagues.
There is the League of Gentlemen, but that's not...
But that's Gatiss and Pemberton.
Yeah.
And there's a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is a comic by... Who's that really famous? Alan Moore. But there's another league that Simon What's-His-Chops, and he's like a thin guy. I'm not going anywhere with this, but he was great. I used to really like...
Simon Munnery?
Simon Munnery. I loved Simon Munnery. The weird stuff. I used to like the Divine David as well, David Hoyle. I went to see a gig of his and it got a bit ugly and I walked out. But I used to love the Divine Davids. And when I was a kid, I loved, my absolute favourite was Lenny Henry.
Oh, okay.
His like really high energy stand-up from the early 90s. I had the misfortune to pick up a DVD of his that he did again about 10 years ago, and it was absolutely dreadful. And I'll always love him, but he's lost his touch, bless him. And I also, I was on board with Lee Evans as well. That was quite vital, wasn't it, when Lee Evans came out? And Eddie Izzard, I'm just saying all the comics I could think of. Because when you'd say to me, Jamie, who do you like stand-up comics? It's not an area of my brain that I delve into, but now I'm thinking of it. I've watched an awful lot of stand-up comedy, on video. There was a great culture for it. Eddie Izzard became the king of the home video, didn't he? When he brought out Circle and all those. And they were as big a deal for us as teenagers as like a Hollywood movie. Eddie Izzard's latest, Cake or Death or Covered in Bees, all that stuff. That was legendary. That was when I was a teenager that Eddie Izzard was a king. So when I was a kid, it was Lenny Henry. When I was a teenager, it was Eddie Izzard. And then later, it was the weirder ones like the two halves of the Boosh. And then I sort of lost touch with it because I didn't really enjoy anything that was happening. I thought Catherine Ryan was very funny. I saw her on the Apollo a few years ago, but now she's sort of settled down into hosting various game shows, and I don't see much of her stand-up. But God, I rambled on. But you asked for it.
I did, absolutely, yeah. It's the comedians' tea party, and why not talk about comedy?
Sure,
it'll come up. We've spoken about bands. And technically, you are the first non-comedian guest that I've had.
That's cool. Although many people would say that my live show sort of is a weird hybrid of music and stand-up. And in fact, I did consider many times going into stand-up when I was younger, but I could never quite get around to it. The hours you've got to put into it are equal, if not more, than putting into a band. Plus, through reading these autobiographies of many comics, it did seem like getting your start and going through the clubs as a comic was a lot rougher than going through the clubs as a band, even though going through the clubs as a band was pretty rough. At least you got your mates around you, whereas as a comic, and the audiences, I feel like they want, not many audience want a band to be rubbish. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Oh, absolutely. Say whatever you want.
But there's something in an audience, if they've got it in them, and I speak from no experience just reading these books, but I can tell, sometimes they want the comic to be shit, and sometimes they're just against you. And although I have had gigs like that as a band, on the wrong bill, for instance, Sum 41's tour was particularly trying.
Oh.
Yeah. But as a comic, I think it seemed a lot tougher to me, so I never had the gumption. Although, as people have said to me, I've sort of ended up in a weird hybrid of the two. Many people say, "Oh, I love the joke bits of your shows," and I'm like, "Well," and I wasn't really aware that I did any joke bits, but apparently I do.
No, you're a very funny man live, so yeah, I'd say that washes. Yeah, for sure. No, it makes sense. There's quite a few bands that are sort of the front man is often quite funny.
Yes.
And what I notice a lot is some bands will think that they're funny. And you'll get the front man and he'll tell like an anecdote, and it inevitably ends up being something that you would have heard in the 80s.
Oh dear. Oh dear. I don't actually see very many talkative bands at the moment. It seems to be a lost art. I only ever started talking to the audience to cover the extraordinarily long time that I would spend tuning my guitar. But maybe now people, because there's better musicians than me, obviously everywhere you look, they don't need to spend so much time waffling in between songs, and that's why they're not quite so talkative. And I think that's a shame. I really want to, if I stick on a record, there's all the songs. If I go live, I want a personal connection, and I'd really like to hear what the artists have to say for themselves. So
absolutely,
yeah.
I mean, I quite often miss it when bands don't talk much. And I always notice, and I think that's probably because part of me, like even when I was watching bands before, I was into comedy. I think I was always like into comedy, but I just never noticed. But I did notice when bands would stop talking. Like I went to see Misfits at the Electric Ballroom a few years ago, many years ago, and they played about 150 songs and said about 6 words. Like the whole night, and they'd just, like, here's another song, like, and then stop, and then they'd just play another one, and it was incredible to see. But I did think, like, tell us a story.
Yeah, especially with a band with the history of the Misfits, a band as legendary who have got stories to tell and have a career behind them. I'm not saying make every gig an evening with, but just a little bit. You've got to find the right balance. Yeah, shame.
Yeah. So you keep it up, man. It's good.
Thank.
I like to see it. Did you just say thank?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's developed. Yeah. That's an old thing from the band days. Thank and welk. Yeah.
I like it, man. Yeah. No, I've actually I've seen you live a handful of times. Not loads, but always enjoy it. I've not seen you in a while though. But you're gigging with 2 people now, right?
Well, I mean, the lineup is 2 people, so it's me and a drummer. Yeah, has been for a few years.
And is that switching between Guy from Reuben?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And
yeah, the last time, I mean, I suppose I haven't played live, since last year. And last year, I played with, I think, 4 drummers in total. Yeah, there was Dan Cav, who I've been playing with for a long, long time. And then we got Chris Rouse, who was a guitar tech and drum tech for my old band, Reuben, old friend, who did a few shows. And then I went over and did a couple of shows in Ireland and a very short tour of the UK with Guy, which was wonderful. And then I did my main big long album tour in the winter. Was it November? Yeah, I'm always touring on my birthday for some reason, with Jack Wrench from Arcane Roots, who is a fantastic player, who I actually, out of the 4 drummers, Jack I'd known for the least amount of time. Everyone else had been with me, ever since I've been in the band, either playing in the band or teching or driving or whatever, whereas I'd only known Jack for about a year or just over a year. So I was a bit trepidatious as to how we would gel, because playing music with someone is one thing, but spending 18 hours in a van with them is another. And happily, Jack is one of the most easygoing, friendly people. Well, having said that, that's what I thought he was in the first place. I actually discovered on the road that he's a lot more like me than I suspected, and I hope he won't mind me saying this, but he's quite cynical, and I'm quite cynical, and maybe that was why we made quite a good match. If he had been as pure as the driven snow and butter wouldn't melt as I first thought he was, perhaps we would have grated against each other. But thankfully, we're both so jaded and angry at the music industry that we rub along quite well. So that was a great pleasure, not only to play music with him, but to discover that we're good friends as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, it's quite funny because I'm quite jaded by the music industry.
Of course,
hence
you are.
Not really being a musician anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I am, but yeah, because I spent quite a long time just trying to be a session drummer.
Oh yeah.
With the dream of playing in theatres.
Yes, great.
Yeah, I loved it, man. Like playing for musicals. There's something about
wonderful.
Something about playing from a score where everyone's like, it's a different level of tight to like playing in a band.
Absolutely. No, it's really wonderful. What musicals did you ever get a go at any?
I largely did Amdram stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
Some really fun ones. I played on West Side Story for a week.
Lovely.
Which melted my brain.
Yeah, sure.
Everything in that is a horrible time signature.
Yes, of course.
What else? Godspell? Like the modern version of Godspell?
Not seen it, but I know its rep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun, actually. I played percussion for High School Musical.
Oh, dear. Oh,
yeah.
no.
The band for that was a right laugh. So
it's quite something being part of a company, and that again is something that I wish that I could find some time to do, and it is one of my ambitions actually to. I would like to get involved in musicals, actually. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. God, I'd love to. I'm a big fan of musicals. Not all musicals. There's a sort of, again, I sort of sound like my culture barometer has just been turned off since about 2010, but it's not true. There's all kinds of great new art springing up all the time. But things go in phases, don't they? And I think what I sort of call the Wicked syndrome set in, or rather the Hairspray syndrome, because Hairspray was all this great John Waters film, and then this, I mean, it's driven by money making, because as far as I'm concerned, a proper musical, is something like, you know, my favourite musicals are Rocky Horror, you know, things like that have been written as a musical, and the songs tell the story, and if you take the songs out, you ain't got a story. Whereas what has started to happen is that people take any old property, any old movie that people liked, from the 80s preferably, and they just wodge a bunch of songs in, and that's not really a musical as far as I'm concerned. And this is what started to happen with Hairspray, happened with, you know, they've made one out of Back to the Future, Christ. And
Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands.
Christ, awful. Matilda, all this crud. And I don't really think that's a real musical. That's a story that you've sort of crowbarred some songs in so you can make some money on Broadway. And good luck to you, but really, I hope you die. What I am talking about when I say musical is these things like Grease. And, you know, like I said, Rocky Horror, Bugsy Malone, all these favourite things. Do you know what? I was going to say Little Shop, but I nearly tripped up because, of course, Little Shop was originally a B movie. But I think the Little Shop musical has been revamped substantially as to be its own thing. So that's what I mean. I'd love to be involved in one of those, either as a cast member or as a musician. Sadly, I haven't really got the chops for either. I'd have to work on my singing, certainly. But I'd really love to do one of them, yeah.
I mean, have you ever... so... Small world, obviously, like I'm in Southend, as you know. The Amdram company that my sister is in is the same company that Dave Gardner's in.
Dave Gardner. Well, no, he's in about 6, isn't he? Which one? I came to see him in The Chin Man, as we came to call it.
Oh, yeah. My sister was Dorothy.
Was she?
Yeah.
That was wonderful. It went on for about 6 hours, but I enjoyed it. And I have to say, I was paying much more attention to The Chin Man than Dorothy, but the whole thing was wonderful. So you would. I think we went on the last night, and it was great. Yeah, and Dave, you know, he's an enormous talent, great singer, and one of these funny frontmen that we're talking about. And I learned a lot from Dave. And yeah, that he's making the transition to acting. I missed him in Rope. He did a serious piece in Rope.
Oh, right.
But The Chin Man was the only. I can't stop calling it The Chin Man because he has a large chin, listeners. Yeah, that was great to see him in that. I was very envious, but also aware of the large amount of work that he and your sister, obviously, must put into it. Yeah, very galling.
Yeah, like twice a week for 6 months or something. It's mental.
Oh, fuck that. No, I'm not going to do it. Okay, I'm not going to be in any musicals, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the professional guys, I think they rehearse for about a month.
Yeah,
like it's pretty intense, but it's just for about 4. It's for about 4 weeks. They learn everything and then just go and do it.
What I'm sort of hoping, and this is my career plan, and I haven't revealed this to anyone apart from my managers who raised many more eyebrows than they actually have when they heard it, is that sometimes you get some musical that has fallen on hard times and they want to do a UK tour and they have to bag like an F-list star to be in the cast, right? And I haven't even got quite there yet. So what I'm hoping is that the trajectory of my career continues in an upward path and coincides with the trajectory of some touring musical like Bugsy or Malone or whatever, even though that's children, to the point where they start casting, they think, oh, we really need someone to put a few bums in seats on this next tour. Where's an F-list celebrity to play a role? And then I'm standing right there. And that's my in. So that's what I'm hoping for, that I'll get like a spurious, whatever Danny's mate is in Greece. I could play that, no problem. He'd have to suddenly have a moustache. I ain't getting rid of the lip rug. But that's my plan, is to be your spurious local celebrity in a hard on its luck touring version of whatever musical.
What musical? Anyone in particular?
Rocky Horror. That's my absolute aim. I want to play Frank in Rocky Horror.
Nice. I'm sure we can make that happen.
Christ. All right.
I've got some contacts.
Okay.
No. I might have. Let's look into it.
I think it'd be good to play Frank with a moustache. I want to play the first Frank with a moustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you ever considered writing a musical?
I've written several.
Have you really?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh wow!
But they never see the light of day because it's such a big project, and they're all stewing away. The first one I wrote was when I was about 11. It's called Love and Death in East Cheam, and it was heavily based on West Side Story and Rocky Horror, because I was mad for Rocky Horror when I was 10 and 11. And I got quite away with that before I realised, I actually had to tell a cohesive story, and I couldn't quite manage that. And since then, I've had several stabs, and some bits have turned up as songs on my albums, and some bits have stayed in a For the Musical pot, and eventually I'll manage it. So I'm always trying to write a musical.
That is amazing. Now, I've just realised that I've made what can only be described as the biggest error that I've ever made in podcasting history, in that I've not been recording.
You're joking?
No, I've got a backup recording, so that's been recording my end. Are you recording your end?
Indeed.
Good. Right, I can pull it together. Oh, you have no idea how much I've just myself. No, thankfully, I've got one of these little guys.
Thank goodness. Oh, yeah, I was looking to get one of them myself, yeah.
Yeah, very handy. Really, really handy. Because for when anything goes wrong, such as this, because I'd recorded a bit earlier, and then I stopped it, and then I called you about 3 times, and
why would you?
And here we are. But it's recording again now.
Okay.
And oh dear. No, it's cool. I've got a version of myself being recorded. I'll
Good. Well,
together.
I've got the important bits, my ends. I'll send them over. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just do the first bit as just you.
Sure. You could just dub. You can dub on your questions afterwards and make it sound like I completely avoided your questions. You could be like, "What did you get in your GCSEs?" And I'll be like, "Thing about being in a band is."
Yeah. What's your favourite type of shoe? Rocky Horror.
Absolutely. Well, both of those are actually fair enough questions. What I did in my GCSEs was start a band, and my favourite type of shoe is them shoes he wears in Rocky Horror. So there's ways of bending it round. You could do what you like.
Here we are.
Yeah,
beautiful. That's work. Oh, I've just started sweating. That's it's fine. It's worked out. We've got some recording, have we? That's definitely it is. Yeah, right. Cool.
Good.
Onwards. Good. Right. I'll edit all this. You'll never hear any of that.
Okay. All right.
Are you big on tea?
Well, this is the thing. I'm big on English breakfast tea.
Yep.
I don't actually hold much with any other types of tea, this is a big challenge for me, accepting an appearance, an invitation to be on this podcast. I just drained the mug of the rhubarb and ginger tea, which you sent me very kindly. I have to say, I wasn't impressed. It sort of tasted like just ginger, but even less gingery. So it didn't really grab me there. I was looking forward to the rhubarbiness. And I ate an awful lot of rhubarb as a child, and maybe the man I am today. And I didn't know. I should have stirred it with a stick of rhubarb to get some flavour there. It just tasted like slightly weak ginger tea. So that's a mark off for tea pigs.
Oh dear.
But generally, I drink a lot of tea, but it's always English breakfast. Nothing lapsang, souchong, or Earl Grey. I don't muck about with that business. Nope. Builders.
Yeah. What's your breakfast tea of choice?
Whatever the cheapest one in Tesco's. I'm not very discerning about a lot of stuff. I just sort of brush it in. I'm a very simple creature, and I can make do with the most basic materials. So as long as it's brown and wet, I'll be fine.
What's your process for making a tea? I know that's a boring question.
No, it's about having just said that I was a simple creature. Actually, that's not quite true, because once I'll go for any tea bag, but how you must treat the tea bag in order to make a cup of tea to my specifications is pretty severe. It's got to be broiled. Basically, I like very strong tea. So you gotta brew it for a good while, bully the bag, and then only a teaspoon of milk. And I say this to people, and I say, look, only put a teaspoon in, and what you'll do is you'll put the teaspoon in, you'll look at the colour and go, nah, he can't mean it, and then you'll bosh a load more milk in. Stop yourself before that second step, because I do just want the teaspoon. I like my tea of a mahogany colour, and I have sent many cups of tea back from gracious people. If the Queen make it wrong, I'm going to send it back. I just won't drink it.
Fair enough.
I don't really understand these people that just chuck the cow juice in it to a point where it's just warm milk. You can't taste any of the tea. And some people like this sort of beige cream tea, and I think just have warm milk. Just have a nice little warm milk before bedtime. Don't call it tea. Just admit to yourself that you like warm milk. So no, yes, I just have very, very strong tea with a little bit of milk. Take the edge off.
Well, I respect that. That's fair enough.
You like all kinds of teas, do you?
I was always the same. Like I always liked just an English breakfast, just like, PG tits, Yorkshire tea, whatever.
Yep.
And then I tried green tea at my friend's house one New Year's because everyone was no, was it New Year's? It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But regardless, there was a party and he gave me some green tea because I didn't want to drink. I think I was driving and
it sounds like a dull party.
Yeah. No, it was very exciting.
This.
And I had green tea for the first time and I thought, well, that's okay. And I thought there's got to be better versions as well. So I started looking into other versions of tea and found some. And I'd never really tried that many. And then I wanted to start a podcast. And I'd been watching a lot of Seinfeld's podcasts. Is it Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
Oh,
and I thought, I want to do the quintessentially British version of that.
Yes.
So I just emailed some tea companies and said, send me some tea. And they said, okay.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Wow, I shouldn't have been quite so mean about tea pigs. Thanks, tea pigs.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're thanking me for sending it to you. And although I did pay for the postage, they sent the tea. So
that's a good grift. Nice one.
Yeah.
I wonder what I could get stuff off for free if I started a podcast. Maybe a podcast based on action figures. I probably could. That's quite easy to do in it if you review action figures.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's going to be like hundreds of people that will want to talk to you about that as well.
Yeah, I did actually consider during a very bored period last year starting a little YouTube series about all the action figures. The trouble is that I've got them all set up, so the space is so tight. They're all crammed in intricate displays, and I can't really get them out to say, look at this Peter Venkman from Ghostbusters. So that's a problem that I'm going to have to sort out. But I would love to do it, yeah. I watch a lot of YouTube programs myself about action figures.
Oh, nice. I mean, that's the beauty of podcasts, though, is you could just talk about it and you don't have to get it down.
Good point. Yes, nice one. I'll do that.
Yeah, it's a purely audio medium.
I'll just describe the sculpts, yeah.
Yeah. How many have you got, out of curiosity?
Action figures?
Yeah.
Thousands.
Wow.
Just looking at them, there's got to be thousands, yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah,
fair play.
Yeah, they're all good. Apart from Sharp Hand Joe, I've got one over here that, again, you can't see. It's my friend got me a Freddy Krueger rip-off figure, like a knockoff action figure of Freddy Krueger called Sharp Hand Joe. And he has got a very similar... It's like Where's Wally, but in a hat. And he's got serrated bread knives coming out of his hand. Sharp Hand Joe. He's the only bad action figure I got. The rest are all brilliant, but Sharp Hand Joe's rubbish.
I'd like to imagine that that very action figure was the inspiration behind Freddy Krueger, like your song.
Sadly, he came along a lot later, but I do think of him when I sing Freddy Krueger, which isn't very often.
Yeah, nice. Now, right, I have got to ask because, like, I've listened to sort of all your albums anyway as a fan.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now, I was listening the other day just to sort of refresh myself. Has Shotgun House got a sample of drinking tea in it?
It's not a sample. It's a genuine off-mic slurp of tea.
Oh, amazing.
Because I was drinking tea when we were recording it, and I thought, let's leave that in there because, nothing says more about me than the fact I was drinking tea. And the irony being that that's the most American that I got on Shotgun House, singing this sort of song from the deep south, an Englishman pretending to be from Mississippi. Really quite offensive if you think about it. So the culture clash of having that slurp of tea in there, I thought sort of made it all right and pricked the balloon of pomposity, which is something I need quite often. But yes, good ears, that is a slurp of tea, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I just heard it and I was like, that could be any drink, but that sounds like tea.
No, it was tea. And it wasn't even a sample. That was during the vocal take.
Oh, amazing.
I had a slurp and we left it in, yeah.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I've got, you know Luke Branch, of course.
Of course.
So I started another podcast before this that never saw the light of day.
Right.
And I'm still yet to actually create a theme tune for this podcast. 21 episodes in, still haven't got one.
Yeah.
Should have, but there we go. But I got, before the other podcast even existed, I got Luke to sing the other theme tune.
Nice.
And there was just like, he laughed at how ridiculous it was at the end of it because it was cool. It was a podcast about nostalgia.
Yes.
And like sort of all stuff from my youth, and we called it the Podcasting Peas.
Nice one. Down at the bottom of the podcast.
Yeah, well, sort of. It was down at the bottom of the garden. There are the podcasting peas. It doesn't matter.
You've got to send it to me.
It never happened. But
you're talking to a man that has the theme tune from Poddington Peas on a CD that he listens to on the reg in the car.
Nice. What's my point? Oh yeah. Anyway, so he laughed at the end of that, and it was really good. So I left it in.
Oh, great. That's kind of stuff's important. You'll have to send it to me. I'm intrigued.
I will. Yeah, but I did. I had to sort of rewrite it and recorded it myself, and then just got Luke to re-record the bits that sounded because I'm not an amazing guitarist. I enjoy it, but I'm not very good. So
join the club, mate.
No, but you're better than me.
So it's all relative, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm better at the songs that I've written because
absolutely
no one else has ever heard them. So
yeah.
Are you a biscuit dunker?
No, not at all. Not songs. No, I never would. Even before I switched to a diet that doesn't really allow me any biscuits, I would never dunk. I thought the point. I mean, is the point of the biscuit that it is porous and allows tea, because the sop is a staple. Has been a staple of British diet since medieval times and before. When people talk about a milk sop, what they mean is, a piece of bread soaked in milk that you would give to a child to eat. But also, for a lot of medieval history, a wine sop, when you woke in the morning, a classic breakfast for people in medieval times was a bit of bread soaked in wine. That's what you'd have for breakfast. So
really?
Absolutely. So the culture of dunking things in your drink is actually quite intrinsic to our nation's eating habits, and indeed European eating habits. Whereas to me, it seems bizarre that you would dip anything in your drink. The fact is that it's only in the last 100 years that we haven't done that for most of our meals. So in the history of, British culture, I'm fairly aberrant in that I've never thought this was a good idea. And so when you dunk your biscuit in your tea, you're joining your long line of ancestors going way back when, who did the same thing with wine and bread. But no, it's always been revolting, and I like the fact that a biscuit is crispy. But where I'm doubting myself here, is a biscuit crispy because you're supposed to make them soggy? I don't know. Philosophy and history.
Point. Yeah. I mean, so do you have a biscuit whilst you drink your tea?
Sometimes I will. I live a very people who can just have a cup of tea and a couple of biscuits with it. I envy those people hugely, because that's not how I'm able to live my life these days. I used to. And then I got too fat to move, and so now I have to really limit myself. And every now and then, before what I call have a treat meal, I'm allowed to eat what I want for one meal a week. And nice. Maybe if it gets to about 5 o'clock before the treat meal, I might have a cup of tea. And because there's going to be some shenanigans later on, at this point, I may treat myself to a biscuit. And when I do go for a biscuit, I like a chocolate chip cookie, like a Maxwell. Are they called Maxi? What are they called? The chocolate chip cookies that you get in the supermarket for about £1.
I don't know.
Max something, they're good. Oh, I do like a party ring. I had some party rings.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Oreo. I do like the Oreo. These are my biscuits of choice. And now you've got me, tummy rumbling, and I can't wait for tea time. But yes, the simple pleasure. I never thought I'd look upon a biscuit as an unassailable luxury. Or indeed a slice of toast. But unfortunately, I'm 37 now, and these things, that's what my life is. But it means I appreciate it more when I do have them, which is hardly ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a special treat.
It absolutely does, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's an incredible answer, to be fair.
Sorry.
About the whole sop.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. So I suppose that's where sopping wet comes from.
You would have thought so, yeah.
I am learning.
Yeah.
That is true of this podcast more than any other. Although I did actually learn what PG in PG tip stands for the other day, which is progestive.
What?
Yeah. Helps your digestion. Progestive.
That's nuts. But okay, good. Thank you. Well.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Rate of exchange.
Hey, we're imparting knowledge on each other.
We are.
Did you want to have another tea or?
We could go for another tea. Absolutely, yeah.
You've got a second. I'll need to go and boil my kettle.
Tell you what, let's take a short break, and then in 5 minutes we'll reconvene with a new brewed tea. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good. Whilst we are still talking about tea, because you had the rhubarb and ginger.
I did,
and it's always my plan to have the same tea as my guest. But
yes.
what I did was I sent you the last rhubarb and ginger that I had, so I couldn't have the same one.
Wow. What did you have?
I had the Tea Pig's Trim, which is their metabolism tea.
Wow. I mean, I wouldn't call any product trim for various reasons, but okay. Well done, Tea Pigs.
It was fine.
Sure.
I had a beetroot tea from them the other day, and it was delicious.
Holy malacas.
So They do make a good tea. They've got quite a few nice ones, like the Jasmine Pearl one in particular is quite nice. This is fine. I'd drink it again if it was there, but I'm not going to buy it.
Okay, all right, thanks. Good info there.
You're welcome. I don't know why I told you that. You don't imagine you care. Cool. Right. Okay. Let's go and have a tea.
Okay.
And right, we'll reconvene in a moment. I'm going to leave it recording because
okay, all right.
Otherwise, it may never start again.
Good thinking. Give me a call back. Hello, Si.
Hello. I was just texting you.
Sorry, did you have trouble getting through to me again?
Yeah, a couple of times.
I think my internet's having a funny 5 minutes, and I can only apologise.
Oh, that's quite all right. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm just trying this curry tea, the turmeric tea.
Yeah.
It's very nice, actually. Yeah, it got a big more taste. It got a big more taste than the rhubarb. That's the new campaign for Twinings. Turmeric. It got a big more taste. That's how they need to call. What have you gone for?
I've gone for the same one as you.
Oh right, how's it working out for you?
I've not tried it yet because it's very hot and I burn my mouth very easily.
Sure, you got a tender little mouth. Things I shouldn't say, much less record.
I'm gonna soundbite that.
Jesus, Brian. So are we just because I in the gap I remembered my favourite stand-up comic who I'd mysteriously missed out of the entire list, even though I listed every stand-up comic under the sun. I have a favourite. Are we recording though? Because it might be good for your.
Yeah, I've not stopped recording this time.
Okay, well, I just remembered my favourite stand-up comic that I started listening to return to the question that you didn't really ask. About that 2010 period where mainstream British comedy started to bore me a little bit.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I found all of Steve Martin's records.
Oh, okay.
And I'm an absolute maniac, huge fan of his comedy records. I was sort of indifferent to his Hollywood films, which is how most people in Britain know him. I don't think anyone in Britain knows A, that there is such a thing as a stand-up comedy album, and B, that Steve Martin topped the charts in America with them for the most of the late 70s. So I was quite shocked when I heard it. And his stand-up persona is diametrically opposite to the sort of uptight character he plays in all those great 80s movies. So it was quite a revelation. Have you ever heard any of his stand-up?
I don't think I have, actually.
I could not recommend it more. And in fact, I had only just discovered him when I went to sing on Frank Turner's England Keep My Bones record. I went to a lovely big studio in Crouch End to sing there with him, and his drummer Nigel, who I'd known for years anyway, gave me a lift back to the station. And Nigel is cool. Do you know anything about Frank Turner and his band and all that business? Do you like Frank Turner?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
he's a cool guy.
Is Frank Turner's bassist is Mitch, right?
No, his bassist is Tarrant, a guy called Tarrant Anderson, who used to be the tour manager for my band.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, that's how Frank met his band, the Sleeping Souls, because they were basically our crew on our tours. And Nigel, who's their drummer, just the coolest of dudes. And in his car, I was just about to say, "Hey Nigel, have you heard?" And in his car was the CD of Let's Get Small by Steve Martin. And I knew if anyone was already on the inside tip about Steve Martin, it would be Nigel. So further proof of his immense genius there. But check out Wild and Crazy Guy, which is obviously to do with his time on Saturday Night Live with Dan Aykroyd piggybacking on everyone. And Let's Get Small is arguably his funniest album, even though Wild and Crazy was his biggest one. And what I mean to check out on this tack, forgive me for hijacking your own podcast to talk about comedians.
Go on.
Is Bobcat Goldthwait's Meet Bob.
Oh, okay.
Which again, I've not heard it, and I've not heard any of his stand-up, but I don't know if anyone knows this, he went on tour with Nirvana, opening for Nirvana on the Inutro tour. They took Bobcat Goldthwait as a stand-up comedian to open for a rock gig, which is just brilliant. And I've never heard any of his stand-up. Well, I love his crazy character in all those brilliant films. So I mean to investigate that. So thanks for reminding me, even though you didn't, of Steve Martin and and by that way, Bobcat Goldthwait. But great comedians.
You're welcome. Or should I say, welk?
Welk, yeah.
Who's it? I can't remember what band it was, but John Cooper Clarke, the comedy poet,
yes,
used to open for, I want to say, The Damned.
Right.
Was it The Damned?
Well, I don't know anything about the two, but it sounds like it could work. And in fact, when I went to see Biffy did a very special gig at King Tut's just before they signed their huge record label and became the biggest band on the planet. And they had a comedian opening for them as well, a famous Scottish comedian whose name escapes me. So it's actually not as rare as you might think. They every now and then they dovetail rock and comedy. So yeah, great. I've only just remembered that was a crazy night. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Luke wanted me to do some stuff for them once. I've hosted a couple of, like, they've curated stages at festivals, and I've hosted that and sort of just been funny in between bands.
Yeah, people have asked me to do that every now and then, compare a stage. I did it once a long time ago. I'm not really sure. There's definitely a place for it. If you do it right, it can be dynamite. I think I saw Devin Townsend compare a stage at Sonosphere one year, and that wasn't going down too well. But and I was tempted to sort of compare when I did my Lemmania festival. To compare that, but I thought it would be a bit too much. I mean, it's already called Lemmania. You don't want too much of me. Plus, I was incredibly busy the rest of the day. But it's an idea, isn't it? Yeah, having a compare.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed it, actually. There are a couple of bits where I just myself, but yeah, it's very fun. But then a couple of gigs, because I was just sort of tour managing and driving for Asylums for quite a while.
Oh, right.
They got to a point where I was occasionally selling merch, and then Luke would just pull me on stage. So I'd be selling merch like before and after, and while they're on, I'd be teching for them, just sort of running about.
Blimey.
And then Luke would just pull me on stage with a box of vinyls to be funny and try and sell them. And
that's great.
A man came up to me at where was it? In Chelmsford, like a horrible little cave. And a guy come up to me, and bearing in mind this is about the fourth night in a row that I've done it, and this guy had just come up to me and he said, "Oh, that didn't work, did it?" I was like, "Oh, fuck off, mate. I didn't even know it was happening."
Oh dear. People are very unforgiving, aren't they?
Yeah.
No one likes it when someone makes an effort.
No, yeah, that's it. And I think he tried to proffer a suggestion of what I could have done differently. I was like,
that's the worst. I mean, I've been guilty of that. Yeah, there's that impulse when you see a comic to share with them your best joke that they can use.
Yeah. Well, you did that to me.
Did I?
Yeah. Do you remember you were dressed as Rimmer?
Was I?
Yeah.
What was the joke I gave you?
Southend for Anna Webster's birthday.
What a bellend. Can you remember the joke?
I can't. It was terrible though. Your wife apologised to me before you told it because she knew the joke.
I was probably full of McDonald's. Yes, I'm afraid it's the comedian's version of "you should write a song about that," which I get. You know, it's just But then, you know, having made the mistake myself towards so many comedians, you'd think I'll be more forgiving of the people that make the mistake towards me about music, but I'm not. I wish they'd all burn in a bin.
I think it was a fair trade-off, though, because the first time that we properly met was at Mike and Anna's wedding, and I was very, very drunk.
Oh, yes.
Very, very, very drunk.
Oh,
and
dear.
At the end of the night, I believe I told you that I love everything you do.
Apart from my jokes, evidently.
Yeah, well, that was the trade-off.
Well, let's forgive each other for our past discretions and move on from it.
Yeah. And now we're just best of friends. So.
We are best of friends. Absolve.
Yeah. What have you been up to during the lockdown? That's a question that comes up quite a lot in a minute.
Sure. I've actually been run off my balls. I've been so very busy. Lots of things conspired coincidentally. One thing that happened was obviously because all gigs have been cancelled, suddenly everyone has started scratching their heads to think about what musicians could be doing instead of gigs, and lots of these things have come my way. And the first thing is obviously, you know, live streaming concerts, and I'm a bit shy of technology, so I was a bit anxious about it, but I did one in my own study from where you see me now, and that went incredibly well. And then I don't know if it was a consequence of that, but it seems to be that since I did that, I've just been pulled left, right and centre doing different live stream concerts for lots of people. I did one for Kerrang, I did one for PRS last week, and I'm doing one for Dork Magazine next week, all the while trying to find time to do my own one as well, because some of the ones, the pre-records, I have to film them as well, so it takes up an awful lot of time. Whereas at the same time as all this business, suddenly doing, you know, more gigs in a month than I usually would, certainly in, you know, April or wherever, quite coincidentally, I've become very busy with illustration and design work, which is odd, because for the previous 2 years, until the lockdown started, I'd done very little illustration and design. It that well had run dry, which wasn't so much a problem when I was busy touring and recording, but began to become a bit of a problem, you know, financially. in between records. So I was beginning to get a bit anxious about that. And then all of a sudden, I've got lots of work on. So really, this past month has been incredibly busy, and the next month looks to be just as busy, juggling, because it's usually one or the other. My life has sort of worked out, so I'm either writing and recording, I'm either doing music, or I'm doing illustration design. I was in my band for 15 years or however long. Then when I sacked that off, I got a job at a design agency and I started drawing children's books. And I did that for about, 5 or 6 years. And then when I sort of went back into the band, I ended up sacking off my job at the design agency. So it was back to music again. It's very rare that they're both happening at the same time. But this is one of those periods where that is the case. And it's a bit frantic, but I still have time to mow the lawn and talk to you. So I'm very, very, very busy.
Oh, that's cool, man. That sounds really good.
That's when I operate best, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I work well under pressure. As soon as I realise that things are wrong, like I've forgotten to hit record on I sprung into action.
You did, you did very well.
I thankfully, because funnily enough, so if you're not that familiar with sort of current like club comedy or anything,
I'm not.
Because you mentioned before that going to watch comedy is quite expensive.
Yeah,
but
I mean, for a musician who are all poor, I think if you've got a nice office job somewhere, you could go wherever you like. But certainly for me, I've always been relatively poor because of my chosen profession. So it's only been in the last few years that I could pay for rock gigs. I used to have to always work my way in on the guest list, and until I know someone on the door for the comedy gigs, that would be the same.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for comedy gigs near you. If I'm in your area, I'll give you a shout.
I'd love to come along. I'd be very grateful, because I do like live comedy.
Yeah, but it's the cool thing about live comedy is where I suppose it is the same with bands, really. Like you can get a lot of people that are sort of fairly similar to each other in who they are as people.
Yes.
But as long as they're a good comedian, you're always getting a unique opinion on sort of different things. So like it's cool. There's a lot to be found at comedy clubs, rather than sort of going to watch tour shows or whatever. Like tour shows are incredible because you get to see that person in their element at the top of sort of what they're doing.
That's a production though, isn't it? That's slightly different. That's not really what I'm interested in. I much prefer, club gigs, put together 5 or 6 comics in a bag. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know exactly, obviously I know roughly where you are, but I don't know the area per se, but there's a lot of gigs not far, is what I will say. So
yeah, well, I mean, having professed my love of stand-up comedy and reeled off an encyclopedia of all my favourite comics and thinking about it, how many books I've read, it's weird how little comedy I do go and see because it is out there. Yeah, the thing is, it's like pizza and burger, right?
Go on.
I love burger. I love pizza. If you give me the choice, I will always go for pizza because I enjoy pizza 1 microbe more than burger, which isn't to say that I don't completely and utterly adore burger. But because pizza just pips it, if you give me the choice, I will always go to a rock gig, over a comedy gig, I'm afraid. And it's the same with pizza and burger. If you've only got 1 meal a week, which I do these days, I used to eat pizza burger on and off throughout the week. But now it's burger don't get a look here, mate. So that's my problem, you see?
Yeah, actually, I'd say it's the same for me with comedy and music again, but the other way around. Where before I discovered comedy, I would be going to see like 2 or 3 gigs a week, like local gigs and then big gigs or whatever.
Great.
And I'd just be like all over the place watching so many gigs. Like I've still got all of my like ticket stubs.
Are you one of them? Are you?
Yeah. In a box somewhere, and like I've got hundreds.
Cool.
And I saw so much music because that was all I was doing. Like I was playing loads and I was hanging out. Like I was with my band for a little over a year, and we played about 120 shows.
Nice, wow!
Which for a first year is
it's an awful lot.
Phenomenal. Yeah, and it was great. And like I was going to see gigs with them. I was on the guest list for gigs. I was teching gigs and all sorts. And then once I sort of, it's a long story. I basically fell out of love with music a little bit.
Of course, yeah. Well, the industry will do that to you.
Yeah, and I'm back into it now, but Good. For a little while I was sick to the sick to the back teeth with it, something like that, and
sick to the hind legs of a donkey.
That's it. And then during that time, I'd wanted to do comedy for quite a long time, and sort of everything had fallen apart in the session musician world, and I just got screwed over one too many times, and
sure.
and I thought, well, I've literally got nothing else, so I might as well just go and try comedy. And it turns out I was quite good at it. So,
have you ever thought about comedy music in the style of that fellow who has the orchestra that's very funny?
Tim Minchin?
No, he can go fall into a hole. I can't stand Tim Minchin. Who's the other? He's got like a big orchestra and he's got like a beard and a sharp hairdo, and his orchestra do funny things. He has a setup where he invites the audience to bounce a ball between each other, and the orchestra play to the tempo of their bouncing ball. No, is it not ringing a bell?
No.
It's a whole thing. I wish I could give you his name. But obviously, musical comedy used to be, I feel like it was frowned upon for a few years, but then people like Flight of the Conchords, and to an extent the Mighty Boosh, and the fellow with the dandelion mind, what's his name, the Goblin Man. Come on.
Oh, Bill Bailey.
Bill Bailey. He sort of brought it back up a bit. Would you consider going into musical comedy in that regard?
I've considered it. I wrote, I think before I actually started stand-up, I wrote a comedy song. And
yeah.
And then I looked at it again a few months after having written it and thought, I can't say that in front of people. That's horrendous.
Dear. Oh, no. If you want to write a comedy song, you've got to be good at both. You've got to write a good song and it's got to be funny. That's
it. But the only sort of music that I'm good at writing is sort of heavy rock.
There's definitely a place for that.
There probably is actually some sort of element for it. I mean, some people do it, like Nick Helm does it. He plays with a live band.
Does he? Yeah, I'm not keen on him, but I'll look him up. Did you ever watch The Midnight Beast?
No, I didn't. I saw like a couple of episodes of their show, but they were good actually.
I've started working with one of the fellas from The Midnight Beast, and he's ever so sweet and an incredibly talented producer. But I never actually saw his show, so I was kind of reaching for your impression of it. But I will remain oblivious. You'd think that having formed a friendship with this lad, I would go and check it out. But I'm sort of afraid that if it isn't brilliant, I won't be able to look him in the eye. So I might just keep it a mystery. I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
It depends how much respect you've got for it. No, it is good. I'd watch it. I'd recommend it. Like I say, I've only seen a couple of episodes, but what I saw was very enjoyable.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, maybe I will check it out then. Okay.
Yeah, now that you've asked about this, Teague, which you haven't reminded me of, we're in the same boat as me asking you about comedy.
Yes.
I like it. I've had it before.
I quite like it, but I think I'll only like it because I'm hungry and I want dinner, and this tastes a bit like dinner.
Yeah. I remember I had this on the first ever episode of this podcast, and myself and Cole Donnelly, the guest that I had at the time, described it as tasting like a Christmas ramen.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need a comedian instead of a musician, because they have a turn of phrase. Well, a lyricist is supposed to have a turn of phrase, but it's deserted me. Well, I mean, more power to him. That was fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, I mean, it does taste like that, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Oddly specific. That's why everybody needs a comedian to write copy.
Of course they do. If anyone asks you what your dinner was like, quickly call a comedian. They'll sort you right out.
Yeah. Like, give me the gist, and I'll make it.
That could be a good sideline for you during lockdown.
Want me to describe your dinner?
Yeah.
Send me the bullet points. I mean, so like, have you been doing any writing or anything whilst you're in lockdown? Are you just too busy?
No, I did a writing session with the fella from The Midnight Beast. We
cool.
Got together with an artist on a label in Germany, I think it was, and something that I've been doing only very recently is writing for other artists. But it's I enjoy the challenge an awful lot. So, yes, I did that. I haven't written anything for myself. The way I write for myself is a lot more of a long-form thing. I sort of get a kernel of idea, and I think about it when I'm running or something. And I've had a couple of ideas, but they will take an awful lot longer to materialise into a real thing, maybe not for a couple of years or so. Whereas with the session I did last week, I think it was, or maybe the week before, we had sort of 2 days to get something down from start to finish, lyrics, structure, everything. And in that sort of pressurised environment, it came out really good, actually. The session was really good. Everyone was really firing off each other. Sometimes the personalities don't quite gel, and what you end up with isn't quite as successful. But this time, I was very pleased with what we came up with. I'm looking forward to hearing it on top of the pops, because the singer in question is very talented, got a great voice. And it's frustrating because if I write a song for myself, I can play it at my gigs and I can put it on my own record. With these songs that I'm writing for other people, I have to wait until they bring it out before anyone gets to hear it. So that's the only writing that I've been doing. Is I did a writing session, and I think we're going to do a few more because it went quite well. We did it over Zoom. We were a bit sceptical, but it worked out well.
Oh, cool, nice. Because I suppose I've never really done any music writing sessions. Like I've collaborated with people and sort of worked stuff together, but like I've written and been in writing sessions for comedy, and I imagine it works similarly in that one person will come along and say, I've got this acorn, let's carve it into a shelf. I don't know. But, like we'll sort of throw it around a little bit and then say, I don't know, maybe it's that. And sometimes, like you say, sort of sometimes it doesn't work. Like you'll find people that it doesn't work with. But then generally I will find someone within that session that it does work with, and I'll contact them later and be like,
yeah. I did a comedy writing session once. I did one, and I thought it was quite productive, but then nothing came of it, which is a shame. I suppose you got to throw a lot of mud at the wall before some of it will stick.
Absolutely, yeah. That is that's the thing with sort of open mic nights. That's quite funny about them, because you'll get sort of more experienced comedians who already they know how to be on stage and they know how to be funny, but they're going along like they're not using those nights for their gold. Of course, like they're going along with brand new ideas that probably don't work, but they know how to be funny. So you make it work.
Wow, maybe I'd like to go to an open mic night. This sounds fascinating.
It can be. Chances are you'll see at least 2 of the newer comedians and you'll think, I would either like to kill myself or them. It could be quite the...
It's very difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
I find it quite hard to remember how hard it is. The trouble, the thing that I've always found, and I often talk about this to my wife, is that more so in comedy, I think, than in music, if you open your mouth and you just cannot sing. There's people who say, I can't sing, and they're right. Some people just can't sing.
Yeah.
But with comedy, the lesson seems to be that no matter how hard you bomb, you have to keep going. And I feel like, if you, in comedy, you're expected to go through 2 or 3 years of hell of failing every night before you gain a foothold. Whereas in music, I think, just a few gigs, maybe 5 or 6 gigs with that kind of reaction would make you give up, and most people would agree. But in comedy, it does seem like you're expected to go through purgatory for a much longer period. And the thing that I find confusing about this is, how do you know if you're just rubbish? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, am I still going through this period that I'll come at the other side a beautiful comedy butterfly, or am I just terrible? Have I got the wrong angle on that?
A lot of people never really realise. Some of them, it's really cool because, like I say, there will be people that will make you sit there thinking, I hate everything that's going on here.
Yeah.
But some of those people will turn out to be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Like you say, beautiful comedy butterfly. But you've got to go through the same process. Like, everyone has to go through the same process of they will suck at some point. Even the people that come out and are good for a while, like they're good to start with. Some people are. They just come out and they just go, la, I'm amazing. Oh, bam, they're on TV. But then they find themselves, they're elevated to the next level where they will suck.
This is what Lenny Henry said. I just read Lenny Henry's book, which details his early career, and he said he found it very easy straight away. He started off as an impressionist.
Yeah.
And then he was immediately on telly, immediately doing paid gigs, and then he hit a wall. Yes, when he got to that level, and suddenly he had nothing. So it's interesting to hear you corroborate that story.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. But every time it's weird because obviously, as you would with anything, you could describe something as being on a ladder, like you're climbing that ladder.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is it's a giant ladder, right? And you you'll jump and you'll get a couple of fingers. You'll just get a little finger hold on the first rung. And then you'll sort of work for ages struggling and you're having a hard time. And eventually you get a good grip on that rung and you pull yourself up and you stand on a rung. You're like, I am the king of this rung.
Yes.
And then you think, I've got to get up to the next one. So you jump again and you just struggle for a long time. And every time you get up to that next rung, you just struggle.
Wow. What a horrible journey you describe.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. No, it's amazing. You should definitely give it a go. If it's something that you've always fancied doing, do it.
Yeah, well, see, I've sort of got to the time now in my life where, because everyone thinks I don't know, maybe it's a bit stupid to say this because it never is too late, is it? But I think because I'm currently so busy with 2 careers already, there's really not much room to embark upon a third. At some point, I'm sort of looking forward to when either the music or the illustration die off. Because when no one asks me to play in gigs or when I'm making another record, because then I could concentrate on one of these other 100 things that I do want to do. But for the last sort of 15, 20 years, it has been incredibly difficult to find time. It's already difficult enough to find time for the 2 careers I do have, let alone a third. But yeah, I'm looking forward to changing, not changing career. I don't want to quit music, but it would be good to just need more time. But then everyone's the same, aren't they? They want more time, innit?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, kind of, when you're in that situation, and a lot of people do it, they'll just treat it as a hobby, and it's a brilliant hobby, and it feels good. But after a while, it becomes a very time-consuming hobby.
Of course,
because it requires so much time to get to a point where you're happy with what you're doing.
and dedication, and pain and toil, It's not a light hobby, is it? Or maybe it might seem it. No, I think reading all those biographies I keep talking about have given me, from the start, a very unrose-tinted view of... I think a lot of people, if you're funny at a party, someone says, "Oh, you're funny, you should do stand-up," which has been, a phrase that's rung in my ears for as long as I can remember. It ain't the same thing, being a funny guy at a party to being a funny guy on stage in front of a room of hostile strangers. And because I was reading those books and those memoirs from an early age, I knew that straight from the start. And I knew, this ain't a game. It's a tough business. So perhaps that prevented me from slightly willfully just going, "Yeah, I'll do that," and stumbling on, and I could be funny, and dying an absolute death. But then again, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So what are you gonna do?
I see a lot of people do that as well, where they like all their friends will tell them, like probably whilst they're at parties, coked off their head.
Yeah,
they'll be like, "You're so funny, you should go do stand," and then you see them go to do stand up.
Do you?
And they take that same energy on stage, and they just go ba 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 without actually thinking about anything that they're saying or have planned. And then they'll die a death, and they'll turn around and be like, "Well, what was wrong with that? Like, what happened?"
Yeah, very dangerous.
Whereas I could be a little introspective at parties sometimes.
Yes.
Like I'll be sat in a corner, but if you get a group of people that will sit around a table and like kind of one funny thing comes up, like I could riff off of that, and I'll have the table in the palm of my hand, and as a fairly introspective, ostensibly shy person, I'll feel like an absolute king. But then I can also take that and do that in a room on a stage. But if you get a bunch of genuinely sort of really funny people around in a pub, I might get one or two lines in for the whole evening. Right. And I won't be that funny guy.
But you get a free show.
Yeah. But you put those funny people on stage, funny at the pub, and they're not funny. So
it's all about context, isn't it? I'm glad that I've never seen that happen to anyone, although I've seen some bad comics who maybe were told that they should do stand-up and were regretting that advice. But I'm grateful I've never fallen into that trap myself.
Oh, yeah. No, nobody's ever tried stand-up who haven't at one point been told that they're funny.
Really?
Well, actually, do you know what? I say that. I wanted to try stand-up for a long time because while I was working in the theatre, I saw everyone from we ran comedy clubs in a little bar in a room downstairs. So I'd be seeing people that are sort of where I am now, like working their way up. And then on the main stage, like 2,600 seater theatre, we'd have, like Lee Evans, Omid Jalili, Dara O'Brien, like enormous acts, like at the top of their game. So I'd see everyone and I'd be like, oh, it's just cool. Like, and I felt like I had something that I could do. And then I turned to the people that I work with and I said, I really want to try comedy. And two of them turned around and said, but you're not funny. And so I went, oh,
nice.
Okay.
Wow.
So
it
was about 3 more years until I actually tried stand-up.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your stand-up, having had this conversation with you today and experiencing firsthand, how in normal life you're really quite bland. But I'm looking forward to the transformation on stage.
Fuck you.
Right.
No, thank. That's it's very kind. Yeah, I'm gonna think about that for days on end.
Okay. Don't do that.
No, well, that's the thing is, like, in this lockdown world that we're in, the only real comedy stuff that's existing, like I'm having quite fun conversations such as this, which I'm really enjoying, and I get to portray ideas in different ways. It's not the same as being on stage; it's completely different, but it's still an output.
Of course, yeah.
But the other thing that exists is live stream gigs, and I've seen a few comedy ones and some of them work very, very well. And then, like, it'll be the same gig, like different people on the same gig, like one person doing it will be amazing and the other person who I've seen live is awful. Yeah. And if you saw them doing that, you'd be like, I'm never going to go and see that person live. But they're very good, and it's just not a format that works for them.
Sure.
So I've not actually tried any live stream gigs yet because I'm terrified.
Well, send me an email when you do. I'll be watching. I've seen a few live stream cabaret shows, and yeah, it's always a mixed bag, and it's the same for musicians. You have to find out, who can translate it to a new medium.
Yeah, it takes a special energy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you got to replace that interaction with something.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Blimey.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, man. Right, have you got anything that you want to plug, like anything you're doing at the minute, or do you want to plug any of your albums? Or
When's this coming out?
Probably in a week.
Okay, well, in that case, I would just say I'd recommend that people check out my new single, Summer of Discontent / brackets, The Future is Dead, depending on where you're listening to it, because different radio stations have called it different things. So check that out. And also keep an eye on my socials for the Total Request Live. I'm doing a series of shows when I get a chance, which is where people write in and request songs and ask questions. So it's a bit like an evening with, a bit like an interactive show. So have a look out for those. The first one was really great, and I'm quite eager to get another opportunity. But that's all I got at the moment to plug, really, is the new single and any of these Total Request live shows that I managed to pull out.
Cool, man. What are your links for your socials?
It's all just Jamie Lenman, like jamielenman.com, Jamie Lenman at Facebook. I don't really know. I'm just logged in and that's all I see.
Yeah,
there's only one
cool.
Jamie. There's only one Jamie Lenman. Just shout Jamie Lenman at your computer until I appear. It will happen. Yeah.
Are you like, what is it, Bloody Mary? Is it Bloody Mary?
You mean the thing that appears in the mirror when you say the name 7 times?
Yeah.
No, I don't know about Bloody Mary. I know about the Candyman, though.
Oh, yeah, Candyman, of course. Yeah. Beetlejuice.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm not like that, no.
Is that your vibe?
No, just keep shouting. Yeah, you got to shout my name 100 times into a mirror and then I'll turn up. See how many people do it. Brilliant.
Oh, I'd like to find out, A, if people do that, and B, if you do turn up.
Well, I'll have to now, wouldn't I? It's binding, innit? Yeah. Oh, bloody hell. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got to get off then.
Yeah. You've got a lot of places to visit.
I have, all of a sudden.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right, thanks very much for coming on.
You're welcome.
It's been really fun.
Thanks for having me.
Like I said, if I'm ever in your area, or if you're in mine, then let's do this face to face.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks very much, and we'll get some rhubarb. In fact, no, I think I preferred the Christmas ramen, to be honest. Sack off the rhubarb.
It's good. I mean, I've got of the Twinings one, so I've got about 300 more bags.
No, you're just boasting. You're just boasting now.
They sent me a lot.
Great, I'm going to write some. Okay.
Yeah. So let me know. I'll send you some more.
Lovely.
And, yeah. Cool, man. Right. Anything else? I've said cool, man, too many times. That is. What's happened is I've done something that has given me some buzz of energy, and
it was the turmeric.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. It's got me excited. Yeah. Excellent. Right. Well, thanks very much for coming on. Hopefully, I'll see you soon. If this goes on for a long time, let's do it again.
Okay. Great. All right. Thanks, pal.
See if you've got anything else to say.
Sure thing.
Anything else to add to the conversation.
All right, I'll clock off and I'll send you my versions of our convo.
Yeah, thanks very much for the whole thing. And then I'll piece together my thing. And
do your best.
Cool. I'm glad you're doing well, man.
You too, buddy. Good to see you. I'm sorry about that party where I was rimmer. What are you going to do?
That's fine. No, it's good. It's good fun.
Okay.
I think I'd been at a gig actually beforehand, and that is why I got there late.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. I've been at McDonald's, similar reasons, yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it. Cool, man. Right, let's. I've said it again. I'll cut all of those out except for the first one.
Please do. Yeah. Okay. Bye for now, love.
Cool. Cheers, man.
Take care.
See you later. Oh, and thanks everyone for listening. You've all been lovely. I hope you're all well.
Well done.
Thanks very much, Jamie Lenman. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
So that was Jamie Lenman. Just an incredible chat. I really genuinely love that. It was so much fun, and he's such a lovely guy. Also, I mean, he talks himself down a lot, but he's a very talented man. So definitely go and check out just all of his albums. They're all brilliant. In particular, as he points out, go and listen to his new single, The Summer of Discontent, because that is very good. Whilst we're on the subject of plugging things that are coming out, also go and check out Asylum's new album, which is, I say go and check it out. It's coming out later this year, so keep an ear to the ground for that. They are... Well, actually, Luke is coming on the podcast soon, so I'm sure he'll talk about that anyway. And his record label, Cool Thing Records, who have a number of amazing artists, many of whom are very good friends of mine. So I'm really glad to be involved in that, which is great. Also, things to check out whilst we are on the subject. A very good friend of mine has started a new project, and he's recorded a lot of it during this lockdown. So go and check out Calm These Tides. That is calm_these_tides on Instagram. And they've got a new single, Lip Service, coming out on the 8th of May. So go and check that out. I'm excited to hear that. On the subject of things to check out that Jamie Lenman's doing, obviously, as he mentioned, there's a Ticketmaster house tour where he does a tour of his house. So go and check that out. Also, go just check out any of the live stream gigs that he's been doing, or just anything. You could just search him on the internet, whatever search provider you use will find anything about Jamie Lenman, very easily accessible. But for the sake of it, he's at Jamie Lenman on everything. It's just JamieLenman, and then jamielenman.com for his website. And obviously, we complement each other on the clothes that we're wearing, but in particular, his dressing gown was spectacular. And you can see an image of that on Instagram. So go and follow at Tea Party Pod, and you will find that picture at Tea Party Pod. That is the letter T Party Pod. Go and find that on Instagram. Go give that a like, because that is a very good picture indeed. Also, go and follow Tea Party Pod on Instagram, Twitter, all of the above, Facebook. Just search Tea Party Pod at Tea Party Pod. Don't forget to get in touch with anything. Just, hey, I tell you what, if you're having a bad time, send me an email, because I'm happy to chat to you. I've got the time. Let's talk it out. Let's just send me an email on teapartypod@gmail.com, and we'll have a chat. I'll put all the links on the podcast description anyway, so go and check that out. In the meantime, if you could drop us some likes and subscribes, and share the tweets and the posts and all sorts of whatever on your social media, share the podcast wherever you can. I really, really appreciate it, because the more people I can get to listen, the better I feel about doing it, and the more guests I can persuade to come on here. So yeah, give some attention, and the more attention I can get, the more tea bags I can get from companies, and I will share the wealth with you, with guests. So it's up to you. My life is in your hands. In the meantime, stay safe, keep washing your hands, drink some tea. I love you. Thanks for listening. Bye.